like showing your screen, and you click go live here.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
All right. Okay.
Now they're telling me. Quiet.
Wait. So
Yeah, we
once
gotta
it
wait for it.
registered, we gotta wait for it to go
Yeah,
live
it
on
looks like it just
Instagram.
registered. It's like the
Okay.
screen's changed.
So now we're on YouTube, Instagram.
Yeah. So
Okay,
now
good.
we can click go live here, and now it's on Instagram.
Okay.
So
Okay.
now it's live.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, hello, everybody. We are doing our weekly live, giving information updates, immigration updates about what's going on in the world of immigration. Today, I have attorney Carl Pierre with me today. So we are going to do a little bit in Creole, and then we might do a little bit in English because we have some news that will definitely impact the Haitian community. So I feel like maybe we should do that part in Creole, and then the rest we'll probably do in English because Carl is bilingual, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the big news, good news, I love giving good news, is of course the humanitarian parole, and CBP1 parole, just parole in general. And this is something that is impacting, they're saying about 900,000 people. The reason why it's so important is because, we have the humanitarian parole. Well, there was two types of paroles. So I don't know if you want to talk about that first. Let's give people a little bit of background because people are like, does this apply to me? Does this not apply to me? So let's talk about the two different types of paroles that they had, that under the Biden administration, the humanitarian parole and then the CBP1 parole. You want to talk about that, Carl? And then we'll tell them what the great news that happened recently.
Sure. So we had the CHNV program, which everyone colloquially referred to it as like the Biden program when they entered in. It was specifically for those four countries: Cuba, Honduras, Cuba, Haiti, and Venezuela. And that
Yeah.
program, it allowed up to 30,000 people per month from those four countries to fly directly to the United States with a U.S. based sponsor. So, a family member that was in the U.S. could do that petition for them, show that they would be able to support and care for that individual while they were here in the U.S. and help them to live and work here for 2 years. And we saw by the end of 2024, the program had admitted roughly about 532,000 people total. Um, that was around 211,000 Haitians, 117,000 Venezuelans, 110,000 Cubans, and 93,000 Nicaraguans.
Yeah.
And the pro.
It's
Mhm.
it's so true. Like, well, I just want to say before you continue that people were vetted for this program, because when people hear that, they're like, they think that the Biden administration just opened the doors and let anybody in, and that was not the case with this program. You had to be vetted. You had to have a sponsor who was going to say that they were going to be in charge of you to make sure that you wouldn't become a public charge. And you were given a work permit, so when you got here you were able to get a job like pretty soon, after entering the United States. And as we know, immigrants usually take those jobs that a lot of Americans don't want to do, so it actually is like a big boost to the economy. But I'll let you continue about the humanitarian parole program, and also what were the one of the benefits, like I just said, was the work permit. So a lot of people were here working for 2 years, and it was a big deal. And then what happened when the Trump administration came in?
Yes, like you said, it was a major boost to the economy. It was praised by many economists because it did provide, like the parolees, they filled in where there were a lot of labor shortages, specifically within like construction, transportation, food service, and healthcare. So they're filled with very hardworking individuals. So they came in, they got the work permits, and they were able to get right to work and really just help boost the economy. And it also helped dramatically reduce illegal border crossings. So
Yes,
one of the major things we saw
yes.
with like the Venezuelan crossing at the border dropped by over 90%. So that was one of the huge benefits, positives that happen with this program. We've spoken about a lot.
Mhm. And then the second type of parole that this benefited was the CBP one. And the CBP one was basically, an application that Customs and Border Patrol had, and you could register for this application and make an appointment in advance to go to the border, and then you would have an interview with a Customs and Border Patrol officer, and then that officer would ask you questions. They would take your fingerprints. They would do like all kinds of biometrics to check and see if you had any prior criminal background checks, all kinds of stuff. Because with the fingerprints, they could even check in other countries if you had ever been arrested and things like that. And if they determined that you were not a danger to society, they gave you a parole, and you actually got like the same type of parole. You got an I-94, like someone that had entered with a visa. So that was another type of parole that was given. And I remember when Trump got sworn in at 12 o'clock sharp, they shut down the border and they shut down the program. And I know people that had their appointments for the afternoon and they couldn't go. They were told, they were turned away. They said, but I have my appointment. But I've been waiting 6 months in Mexico for my appointment, because I know people were waiting 6 to 8 months because they did not want to cross illegally. They wanted to try to come legally to the United States, and they had all their hopes and dreams. And then they got to the border on that day, and it was like, too bad. And then they could not, and then it's like kind of punishing them for trying to be good and actually following the rules. And then you're like, oh well, so it was a really big heartbreak. So first of all, closing the border, but then I don't know if it was April, when was it, but a case came out, because the people that were here were already here and they had their work permit for 2 years, and they were boosting the economy. And then what happened in April? Like as soon as the Trump administration came in, they shut that down. So they took away the work permits of all of these people, and they send a notification telling them that they have 30 days to leave the country. So it was crazy. So a lot of these people like kind of had already started establishing themselves here, had jobs, had families, and all of a sudden they were told, well, you have 30 days to get on a plane and go back to your country, where you may have been like fleeing your country, and you're here with the hope like, oh, okay, I'm working legally. I came in the right way. I did the humanitarian parole, or I did the CBP1 parole, and now I'm getting kicked out for no reason. So that was the situation. So thank God this has been going through the courts. And then recently, a judge just said that the Trump administration could not do what they did, because they just did it so abruptly, for no reason. And it was just kind of like out of the blue, like, well, that's it. So it was very difficult. So I think that that's a good news, because people are so happy now, because under this new ruling, people who had their work permits taken away will get their work permits back, right?
Yes.
So that's amazing. I'm so happy for people that were under that humanitarian parole, or that entered under the CBP1 parole, because the humanitarian parole were specifically done for those 4 countries, because those 4 countries, which were Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Cuba, are all countries that basically like are living in a very bad situation right now. Like Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, they call them like what is it, the triangle, because they're basically like 3 countries that are all with under like socialist or communist regimes and dictatorships. And then Haiti, we just have like a lot of instability since the assassination of our president in 2021. We have not been able to get a new president. I think we have like an interim government, and we haven't even been able to get elections because of the situation with the gangs is out of hand in Haiti, where they've just taken over neighborhoods, taken over the downtown where all the government buildings are. So people are afraid to go to work. The American embassy is constantly shutting down. So, but that is at least some good news. Good news for everyone who had CBP1, humanitarian parole that came in. And those people should be able to get a work permit under the decision of this new administration. Well, not the administration, but what the judge said. So let's hope that USCIS starts issuing work permits again for people, because many people had lost their work permits. And if they didn't have another form of status like TPS or something else, were basically without status. And what that did, which I think is the bigger picture, Carl, is it left them open to ICE. Because
Yes.
now, you're talking about people that now maybe they had a legal protection and now they don't. So what's going on with ICE? What do you think about that, Carl?
Oh man, at this point, it's like, what isn't going on with ICE? There's so many interactions, so many different things that are happening. Most recently, we're hearing that ICE is being deployed to the airports to assist with TSA. So just even for ICE, that now they're getting burdened with even more responsibilities on their plate. But a lot of these protections being restored back to the communities are very helpful because now with this increased presence of ICE, there's increased possibility of you being able to run into ICE. And so we know that that was a fear for a lot of our community members, a lot of our clients, a lot of our Haitians and Venezuelans. They don't want to run into an ICE officer. They don't want to run into an ICE agent because then it's like, oh wait, if I run into them, deportation is coming up next. There's going to be order of removal somehow, some way. So to be able to have these protections that are reinstated and just to give them some sense of peace of mind, some security, it is just such a great thing to have. We were just ecstatic once we heard the news, and it was just like we couldn't wait to just get out here and just let everybody know these protections are coming back into place. And it helps because you don't want to be fearful of going to work. You don't want to be fearful of bringing your kids to school, going to the supermarket, and being taken into custody. So it's great that these protections are coming back into place. And again, we tie it back into the economy. It's great for our economy because we're going to have a great workforce that is there that wants to continue to do the work, wants to continue to contribute. And so that's amazing for that to be had for us to continue to have protections offered to our fellow community members.
Yes, because one of the first things that they did with this administration was take away a lot of the, not only the protections, but the sacred spaces. So,
Yeah.
like when they said like ICE officers could not go to churches, or they could not go to schools, or, they could not go to hospitals. I just read recently that, because I have my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law were both Marines. And, my sister-in-law was actually, she was a staff sergeant in Paris Island, which is where the Marines do their training in South Carolina. And I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, I think it is South Carolina, but Paris Island. Basically, I read that they want to have ICE officers go to the graduation, and the Marines were kind of freaking out because a lot of these young Marines are maybe U.S. citizens, but maybe their parents are immigrants, and their parents are so proud to now go see their sons graduate from their Marine Corps. And some parents were saying that they were scared to go because either if they didn't have their papers, they're definitely getting picked up by ICE. But if they did, there's even no guarantee, because you have people that do have. First of all, there are people that have legal permanent residencies that are getting picked up by ICE.
Right.
There are U.S. citizens getting picked up by ICE just because you look like an immigrant or you sound like an immigrant. And then, so if you have like a case pending, let's say you don't have your citizenship yet, but you have a pending asylum case, or you have a pending adjustment of status going, where you still have a work permit because you haven't completed that green card process. Now you're scared because showing your work permit is not necessarily enough for ICE not to detain you.
Right.
So I saw that the Marines were like, no, like we cannot have ICE come at the to the graduation, because the students, well, the young soldiers were freaking out because they're like, well, I don't know if my parents are going to come, because my parents are immigrants and they're afraid. Even if they are citizens, they might just be afraid because they don't want to have an interaction with ICE. And as we have seen, a lot of these interactions are kind of like grab the person and ask questions later.
Right. Exactly.
So you have people that are getting detained, and then they're like, we'll figure it out later if you're a citizen. And that's one of the things that on the Department of Homeland Security website, they did a post saying that you need to carry your green card with you. And that was a big thing with a lot of my clients, because a lot of my clients said, well, I have a green card, but I don't want to carry my green card because I'm afraid that if I lose my green card, it's such a hassle to get your green card back. You know, there's a fee with USCIS that you have to pay. It's not just like, oh, I need my new green card. There's a big fee that you have to pay to replace your green card.
Yeah.
And people are now like scared, but they said, oh, you need to walk around with your green card. And when I saw that post, I knew exactly why it was. It's because they are getting in trouble for arresting people that have residency just because they look like an immigrant, and they're not, they're actually already have a green card holder. So they're close to getting their citizenship. So now they're requiring that you have your green card holder so that they can kind of, I guess, protect themselves and say, well, it's your fault for not having your green card with you. So we didn't know if you were like.
Exactly.
So I don't know, Carl. So what else is going on in the world of immigration? It's a lot of stuff. Let me see. Oh, so we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I think we talked about this, the social media vetting, and that is happening still. And I think it's getting worse because now the social media vetting is happening for people applying from outside of the United States. So people that are like inside the United States, and let's say you're applying for your green card, they already said that they're going to be checking social medias. But now they want to start doing it like for people that are outside the United States that are maybe applying just to get a tourist visa. And they want to check your social media to see if you've said anything bad about this administration, you know. So it's getting, really, really rough out there. So, and then this is something I also talked about weeks ago, which was the bonds. I remember people told me not to post about this because they said, oh, that's not going to happen. Because I said the Trump administration wanted to put a bond on people for coming to the United States, remember? And so when you come to the United States, like you'll have to pay like maybe $5,000 to make sure that you don't overstay. And they were talking about even like up to $10,000. And everybody said, oh, you shouldn't post about that. That's not going to happen. Because this was like last summer I did a post about this. Well, now it's happening. Not only is it happening, they're expanding more countries. They want to add like 12 more countries to the list of countries that just coming here, you're going to have to pay a bond. So that's crazy, Carl. And I mean, I don't know. It's affecting tourism. It's affecting tourism. So, because I read something, well, actually, I saw about Las Vegas, how the tourism in Las Vegas has gone down so much that the hotels are firing people. And because one of the biggest people that, or the biggest groups of people that used to go to Las Vegas were Canadians. And the Canadians are pissed off at us. So they're not going to Las Vegas anymore. And, they used to come to Florida. They're not coming to Florida anymore. So this is affecting, especially states, I think, like Florida, Nevada, where they rely a lot on vacations and holidays and from, people from foreign countries. This is all going to affect, impact it negatively. So it's not just about, whether or not we're talking about people crossing the border. It's just like tourism, which we want people to come here on vacation because then they spend their money, our economy gets better. That's also getting affected. So I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know what the only good news I have is the CBP, which I'm happy about that. But a lot of the rest of the news is not that great. Is there anything else that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I was reading earlier. There was a decision that came out where a judge was also talked about putting caps on the increases to fees that were coming. So so some of the fees that were like for your appeal fees that were increasing very much. So like they're kind of capping it now, like so it wouldn't go up from $1,000 to $2,000.
Yes.
So that's very good.
That's a good news. I love good news. I love good news because a lot of people didn't realize that in the big beautiful bill there were all of these extra fees for immigrants, like crazy. Almost everything went up. So, for example, when you if you, let's say you miss your court hearing and you want to file a motion to reopen and you have a good reason for filing that, it used to be free, and then they increased that to like $1,000 something. If you want to file like an appeal, an appeal to the Board of Immigration Appeals, if you lose your case, used to be $100. They increased that to over $1,000. So now the new case that came out, I saw what you're talking about. They wanted to even increase the fees higher. They want to make it like $2,000 for people to appeal a case, or $2,000 for people to do a motion to reopen. Because really, what they want is for people to not have access to appealing, or not be able to continue their case and just give up and say, okay, I'm done, I'm just going to leave the country, I'm going to self-deport and everything like that. So the new case actually blocked them from increasing the fees even more, because they wanted to continue just increasing the fees, and it's crazy. So that's another, so I guess that's two good news that that came out this week. The parole has been restored for 900,000 people. We're talking about people from CBP 1 and from the people that came from the 4 countries, and this case with the blocking of the fees. So that is a wonderful good news. And I love to see how, the courts are fighting back. We're not just kind of like letting everything go. So there are people within the court system continuing to fight back. I think that that's why people should still have hope and not get completely, lose hope for everything. No?
Yes, definitely. Like we've always said here on these lives, that we have a lot of great angel groups that are working, doing a lot of the fight for us in the background. They're working behind the scenes, and they're continuously doing it. And every year we get new batches of lawyers that are coming out very zealous and wanting to do good work, and that just helps. And it's also good, so that when you do this fight and you see good results, it motivates you, it empowers you to like just keep going on, like keep the fight. So it's really good, and we're seeing it in places like the courts out of Maryland, courts out of Massachusetts, and you're just like, oh wow, this is great. Let's keep it moving. So again, you see that once these decisions come out, they definitely help to boost the economy. They're gonna have great impacts, positive impacts. From what we can see, all the data is showing us that it's more positive than it is negative. So, and like
Exactly.
you mentioned earlier, like a lot of the programs, yes, they were properly vetting individuals. So it wasn't just a, hey, I'm here, can I come in? It was no, they had to go through everything, file the paperwork. Uh, exactly.
Another kind of good news, I wouldn't say it's 100% good news, but I feel like it is going to be, is the birthright citizenship case, because they have the arguments, and I think the courts are still deciding, but I don't think that they're going to go on the Trump administration side on this, because the birthright citizenship has been something kind of um ingrained in our country for over 100 years, and many people don't realize the birthright citizenship is thanks to the African American community. So I always tell all my clients that it's thanks to the African American community that we have a lot of protections in this country, because we had, back in the day, you could be a slave that was here, an African who was a slave, and that person could be here for generations and generations and would still not be considered a US citizen. So that was something that came in after the Emancipation Proclamation, and basically saying that anyone who was born around that time, who was born in the United States, is a US citizen, because you could have someone that was coming from, let's say, a European country, and they would be able to get citizenship faster than someone who's African American, who had been here for 3, 4, 5 generations. So this is really thanks to the African American community. So many things are thanks to the African American community, because the Civil Rights Act of 1964 opened the doors for immigrants. Like, because before that, most of the immigrants that came here were European immigrants. That's when they really started opening more to South America, to the Caribbean. So it was really a big deal. But that birthright citizenship case, it seems like the judges are not that favorable to him. So I don't feel like that's something that is going to go his way, because it would be very hard. They would have to basically be gutting the Constitution to
Yeah.
justify that, because so I think that could be another good thing. The other thing is the Haitian TPS, still good.
Yep.
Still good. It got appealed to the appeals court, and the three-panel court said that two of the judges agreed that the Haitian TPS should continue. They're still kind of like, I feel like the Venezuelan TPS is still something that could, get overturned. So I still recommend everybody to register with the National TPS Alliance. If you haven't registered, you need to register with the National TPS Alliance. So the other good news, I think, let me see. We talked about the what the courts were talking about, the striking down. Let me see. Oh, the other thing is the H1Bs. And this is something like I was talking about this with someone because of the H1Bs. What I'm going to say this openly, but it feels like they're going after the Indian community, because the vast majority of people who get approved for H1Bs are people of Indian descent, or Pakistani or Sri Lankan, because a lot of them do well in STEM type of studies, because they
Yeah.
value education. So they put like STEM, things like that. So you have a lot of people who work at Apple, who work at these big corporations, who do science, math, technology, the STEM type of. So I think it's science, technology, engineering, and math, right?
Engineering and math. Yep.
Yeah. So there is this outrage about the H1B, and that's why they had increased it. Remember, it's like $100,000. They want companies to pay for H1B. So it feels like this is targeted maybe towards legal immigration. And this is another thing that people are surprised about, but I am not surprised. I have yet to be surprised by this administration. Everything they do, I expected and more. But because they're going after legal immigration, and people said, no, they're only going to go after illegal immigrants, or they're not going to go after people who entered legally, or they're only going to go after people who cross the border. They're not going to go after people who enter with a visa. Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. Did anybody read Project 2025? Like,
Right. Right.
everything I think I read somewhere that they're about like 54 or almost 60% completed with Project 2025 already. With everything that's in there, they tell you what they want to do.
Right.
Like I love that quote from Maya Angelou: when people tell you who they are, believe them.
Believe them. Yes.
People tell you who they are, believe them. This man told you what he was going to do, and some people still voted for him. So, and I have friends that voted for him. So I have some friends that I stopped talking to because they voted for him.
Yeah.
So,
And it's crazy because everybody thought it was going to be just that he would attack like illegal immigration, but immigration is just so vast. There's so many areas within immigration.
yes,
So to see that it's going to affect different areas, that to believe that it would just affect just the one area is kind of is bad on our parts if you're going to think that. So there were just so many different ways, and it's unfortunate because once he attacks one, it's kind of like a backdoor opening for him to attack other areas of immigration. So once we stand for one, we stand for all. So like we're gonna make sure that if it's for quote unquote illegal immigrants, we're gonna fight for them so that we can fight for the legal immigrants as well. Like we're fighting for everyone. So we want to make sure that there are pathways. Because as long as the pathways are there and we have the proper vetting processes, it's going to work. The system's going to autocorrect and fix itself, and it's going to just keep running. And that's what we're hoping for. That's what we're pushing for, is a well-tuned system that's just going to keep on running.
exactly. So hopefully, let me see what else. Good news, good news. I try to keep coming that good news. Try to think positive, think positive. Let me see. Okay, so we talked about the not only like the humanitarian parole. I was talking a lot about with English speaking people who are also immigrants that are also getting affected. So there's some clients, from Jamaica, Trinidad, and that are, let's say, from the Caribbean, and they may be here legally, but they're also afraid because when they try to target, let's say, like the Haitian community, there's not that much of a difference. You can't always tell if someone is Haitian or not. So I've been telling people, carry your naturalization, a copy of your naturalization with you. Carry some type of proof that you are a citizen, because especially if you have an accent. especially if you live in an area where, let's say, there's a lot of immigrants, you might be a citizen, but that doesn't mean that they may not stop you. So there's really no 100% guarantee. And this is one of the things that we're hoping that maybe they can at least rein in some of the things that have been happening. But I don't know. I don't have a lot of hope for this administration. I have hope for the future. I have hope for the future, but I don't have a lot of hope about that they will self-regulate. I think that people need to, maybe speak out about it, and have more and more people that are waking up and seeing, okay, this is not right. I've seen more and more people that were more conservative and seeing that their friends that they go to church with are getting affected now and saying, well, okay, wow. Or people, people are going to school and kids are afraid to go to school. So this is something that hopefully is going to wake up people. And I feel like it is, because today with the birthright citizenship, I was like, wow, I heard some of the arguments from the judges, and I think that that is going to be something positive. Now, back to naturalization. I don't know if you saw about the quota that they want to put on USCIS about the naturalization. Have you seen that? So
I've heard some talking and rumblings, but I haven't actually gotten a chance to actually really review it.
yeah,
But it's just crazy because like with naturalization, unfortunately comes the backside to it, which is denaturalization.
yeah. So that's what they want to do, is denaturalize people. But it's actually really hard to denaturalize people, because you have to usually, like, it has to be something like you're a spy. They find out that you're a spy or something, or they
Yeah,
could do it like if they find out that the way you became a US citizen was a fraud, like let's say you committed a fraud or something and you lied. So, but what they're trying to do now is create a quota, because the reality is, I think it was something like in the last 10 years they might have only done denaturalizations to less than 100 people in the last 10 years. So this administration wants to put a quota of 200 people per month to USCIS, that they want to pressure USCIS to basically find reasons or come up with reasons to denaturalize people. And that is very worrisome, because you have people now, you don't know if they're going to like start reviewing your file to see like why they would denaturalize you, people that are here legally. So it's really, it's rough. And this is why I love that quote. There's a quote from I talked about this before, but there's a quote from Nazi Germany, and this quote was done by a man who was an intellectual. He was not Jewish. He was an intellectual, and he was put in jail for like 7 years by the Nazis because he disagreed with what they were doing. And he wrote this beautiful poem, and it's been translated and changed a little bit, but it goes something like, when they came for the Democratic Socialists, I did nothing. When they came for the labor union, I did nothing. When they came for this people, I did nothing. And then he says at the end, when they came for me, there was no one around to stand up for me, because
wow.
he had done nothing. And
Mhm.
so it's a quote that he wrote. And I think after 7 years, when the war ended, he was released. But he was an intellectual, and he talked about how the biggest downfall in Nazi Germany was people not doing anything, not standing up. And then they started picking away, because it wasn't just the Jews, it was anybody who disagreed with what that government was doing at the time. And they started getting picked off little by little, and then finally got to a point where nobody could really stand up. So hopefully people are waking up, and hopefully history doesn't repeat itself, and we actually wake
Right.
up. So that is my greatest joy, seeing more and more people say to me, like somebody said to me last week, and he said, when you were saying all that stuff, I didn't believe you. And then I was like, really? And now he says, wow, I believe you now. I said, I told you this. I told you this.
Yeah.
From an immigration perspective, on the day of January 20th, I did a live, and I said, okay, it has started. They closed the border. and the lies about all these crazy people coming in, and it was such a orderly way for people to come in. They were vetted, people waiting 6 to 8 months in Mexico. to get to this appointment and then to have it just ripped out of their hands at the last minute. So I fully understand how hard it was for people. I know people personally who were not able to enter because the border was closed like the day of their appointment, and it's very hard. But continue with the good news. Good news. Good news. Good news. Birthright citizenship doesn't look like it's going his way.
It
The
doesn't.
CBP1 people, for now, you got your because they shouldn't have abruptly cut CBP1. So for now, you got your parole back. Everyone who entered under humanitarian parole, they got their parole back also. So that means work permits are back. Now, the part I don't fully, I mean, not that I don't fully understand, but I don't know, and I wouldn't be willing to tell my clients, is having the humanitarian parole technically now gives you legal status if that was your only status. Having the humanitarian parole or the CBP1 parole gives you a work permit. But will that prevent ICE from detaining you? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't have the answer to that. And the other thing that I was wondering is if you get detained, will you be more eligible for a bond? Because technically you have legal status. If you have your CBP1 parole or if you have humanitarian parole, technically you have status. So you should be eligible for a bond. But we know who we're dealing with.
Exactly.
They'll probably find some reason, some way, some new court decision will come down, and So I'm. This is how it should be, and then there's how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. There's theory and then there's practice.
Exactly. There's how it should be, and then there is how it is. So I can't say
Right.
100% like, okay, this is what's gonna happen, but I feel like this is a something positive at least, like two big positive cases, and also about the fees because I really feel like the fees were very unjust. Just like trying to raise the fee to $2,000 to file an appeal or a motion
Right.
to reopen. This is outrageous. So I'm glad that the organization that has been fighting, and all of these organizations, I really commend them. All the nonprofits that have been fighting, Democratic at Freedom. Now I saw one was fighting Haitian Bridge Alliance, the National
Yep.
TPS Alliance.
TPS
All of
Alliance.
these wonderful. The ACLU has like
Yeah.
cases. The American Civil Liberties Union. I am just so proud to be a member of a bar that is fighting for people that are innocent or that at least deserve a second chance.
Right.
I'm not we can't say everybody's innocent, but people that deserve a second chance and come here with so much effort, going through so much to get that second chance, and then for it to be ripped out of their hands. So I respect so much the efforts that people do to get here because you don't know what they've been through, and then for you to just be like, oh well, boom, I'm taking away your work permit, I'm taking away your status, and now you're going back. It's very it's very unfair. It's really just unfair. So hopefully that's something that this administration, we talked about before. um I don't
Yeah.
expect them to change, but I see people are changing, and I see the judiciary is standing up against them, and we're getting like these good cases coming out, good news coming out. So let's just keep coming with that good news, good news, good news. So
Yeah,
right.
with the action that we're getting from the judiciary, it makes us very hopeful because it seems like checks and balances is being restored. So
Yes,
that's
yes.
just awesome to have that back. We learned this back in civics, back in social studies from fourth grade. We learned about the three branches of government, and for everybody watching, remember this is gonna be on a naturalization exam. So
Oh yeah.
so
Naturalization exam is still a little harder. That hasn't
yeah,
changed. Remember, it went up. What is it, like 120 questions now, and you have to
yeah.
show that you pass. Like instead of asking you 10 questions, they can ask you up to 20 questions, and you have to pass at least 12 of those questions. So it is getting like harder, but checks and balances, man. Checks and balances.
Come back into play, and I love it. It just makes it. We're gonna level the playing field now. It's gonna make it much fair, giving us more tools for the fight, which is really good. So
Right.
that makes
That's
us
right.
hopeful.
I Love it. I love it. Okay, so I think we're almost done for now. I think Carl and I we should say an announcement about the CBP one thing in Creole for the Haitian community. I think I'm probably going to talk about it in Spanish next week when I do my next live, maybe with either La Voz de Texas or Utah Solanos. But it's just good news all around. Just keep being positive, keep thinking positive, keep believing, like the song, Don't Stop Believing. You got to
you're
keep
bra-
believing, Carl.
you're braver than I am, Diane. I don't have a voice to even try and sing. But yes, exactly. Like you said,
Believe it's going to get better.
it is. It is. Because, like we said, there are so many people that are joining into the fight. People that we weren't even expecting to join that are actually joining the fight. So that makes you very hopeful and just ready to continue fighting.
Right, right. We can do it, Carl. We can do it. Okay, I see a lot of people like joining. I don't see the questions. I don't think since we're the application that we're using, we can see questions. But if we have questions next week, I'll do like questions and open up to people. But for now, I just wanted to give like information to everybody, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Information is power.
Information is power. Thank you so much for being here with me. Let me just say the thing about the CVP one in Creole, and then we can like post that for our Haitian community. Okay.
Yes.
So, voy a decir algo en Creole para la comunidad haitiana. So let's go. Communauté haïtienne, bonne nouvelle pour communauté haïtienne. Nous gagnons CBP1, parole humanité. Il y a un juge dans Massachusetts qui dit que l'administration n'a pas de droit de faire ça le faire. So nous gagnons 900 000 personnes qui ont gagné parole humanité, qui ont entré avec CBP1. Moun savent que l'administration Trump a coupé permis de travail. Moun savent a continuer avec permis de travail. So ça, c'est une bonne nouvelle, right?
Oui.
Right, Carl? And then I'll say it in Spanish because it just came out. So, entonces, buena noticia para la comunidad de las personas que entraron con CBP1 y las personas que entraron con parol humanitario, porque un juez en Massachusetts dijo que 900,000 personas que entraron con el parol humanitario de los 4 países, Cuba, Nicaragua, Haití y Venezuela, y también las personas que entraron con CBP1, que se le cortaron el parol humanitario y el parol de CBP1, le quitaron su permiso de trabajo. Ahora ese permiso de trabajo debe tener validez o va a empezar dando ese permiso de trabajo de nuevo. Es la buena noticia de la semana. Buena noticia. Seguimos con la buena noticia. Yes, good news, good news, good news.
Great news. Love it.
All right. All right, Carl. So thank you so much for being with me today. Thank you for sharing the news with with me and talking about it. And hopefully every week we get a little bit more good news until the good news outweighs the bad news. That's the goal, right?
Yes, that's the goal. I can't wait. I can't wait.
Okay, everybody. Bueno, feliz noche. See you. Bye, everybody.
All right, bye, everybody. Bonne nuit.
Bye. We got it. I think live ended, Carl. Mm-mm. No. Uh-oh. Mm-mm. Let me see. Discard or no? Mm.
You can do it to discard it. No, you don't want to discard it. That'll be like deleting it from Instagram. So
Okay.
you can't get it.
Hey,
Anyway,
Carl.
we can play